Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into a market that might actually surprise you with its scale and global reach. Intermittent catheters.
Hmm.
Now, for those maybe less familiar, these are vital medical devices, often used by people managing, spinal cord injuries, MS, certain bladder issues. They allow for safe temporary bladder empty.
Essential tools for many.
Exactly. And you, our listener, you handed us some really comprehensive reports and data from cognitive market research. So our mission today, let's extract the crucial insights from this market forecast. It spans, 2021 right through to 2033.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating, I think, is how these very specific numbers, they actually paint a much larger picture. It's about worldwide health needs.
Right.
This isn't just, about the devices themselves. It's a real reflection of global healthcare trends, demographic shifts, even how health awareness is changing everywhere.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Starting big picture.
Yeah.
The global intermittent catheters market, well, it's not just growing. The reports say it's booming. We're looking at sales revenue in 2021 around $2.64 billion.
Yeah, nearly 2.64 billion.
That's projected to hit $3.32 billion by 2025. And then, looking further out, an impressive $5.25 billion expected by 2033,
Wow.
which works out to a steady compound annual growth rate, a CAGR of 5.9%. That seems pretty solid, right? What does that consistency tell you?
Well, if we step back and look at that kind of growth, that 5.9% year-on-year consistently, it signals fundamental shifts, deep, sustained changes in healthcare needs globally. It's directly tied to this rising demand for effective urological health solutions. And importantly, not just in developed nations, but across emerging economies, too. It's not a short-term thing. It's a real growing need.
Got it. So let's transition then. Let's look at the regions. North America, the data shows, has a really strong position.
And it's a leader currently.
Yeah, pulling in over $1 billion back in 2021 and projected to grow to over $1.9 billion by 2033. That's a CAGR of about 5.4%.
That's still very healthy growth.
Definitely. But here's where it gets, really interesting when we drill down into the countries there.
Okay.
The U.S., no surprise, leads the pack, set to hit over $1.17 billion by 2033. Canada, also strong, projected around $486 million.
Right.
But Mexico, its growth path is quite striking. It started smaller, around $116 million in 2021,
Yeah.
but it's projected to reach over $251 million by 2033. That gives it the highest regional CAGR in North America, over 6.6%.
That is interesting. It raises a question, doesn't it?
Yeah, what could be driving that? Mexico's particularly rapid expansion within the continent.
Well, it's likely a mix of things. Expanding healthcare access is probably part of it, sure. But for Mexico specifically, maybe it's targeted government health programs.
Could be.
Or maybe a quickly urbanizing population getting better access to clinics. Or even perhaps better diagnostics identifying more urological conditions. It points to a really significant jump in demand there, something worth watching.
Definitely. So that's North America's strong base, interesting dynamics. What about Europe? Established healthcare, diverse populations. Is it a similar story of steady growth or different factors at play?
Europe shows very consistent growth overall. It really backs up the global trend.
Okay. The numbers show revenue over $765 million in 2021, heading towards nearly $1.47 billion by 2033, a CAGR of about 5.6%.
Exactly. And within Europe, you see some strong performers. The UK and Germany, for instance, both project really strong growth.
Yeah, the UK's CAGR is particularly high, over 6.6%, projected to hit $312 million. Germany also strong, over 6%, aiming for about $258 million.
Right. And France isn't far behind, projected around $184 million. Italy and Russia contributing significantly, too.
Italy around $97 million, Russia $85 million by 2033.
But it's not just the big players. You see this widespread expansion. Spain, Sweden, Denmark, Switzerland, even smaller markets like Luxembourg show growth.
Spain going from $78 million to $126 million. Sweden, $37 million to nearly $66 million.
And the rest of Europe category also shows solid growth, around 5.95% CAGR. So it really underlines Europe's stable, diverse contribution. Different growth rates, sure, but consistent demand across varied healthcare systems.
Okay, so stable growth in Europe, strong base in North America, but the reports flag Asia-Pacific as, the real powerhouse for future growth.
Oh, absolutely. The fastest growing region by far.
The numbers are pretty staggering. APAC jumped from over $533 million in 2021, projected to soar past $1.2 billion by 2033. That's the highest regional CAGR, 7.1%. What's driving this acceleration?
It's incredibly significant. If you look inside APAC, China leads in volume, set to more than double its market to over $465 million. That's a CAGR close to 7.9%.
Huge numbers.
But India's growth rate is phenomenal, one of the highest KGRs globally at nearly 9%.
Wow, 8.945%, from $54 million to over $152 million.
Exactly. What this tells us is likely massive expansion in healthcare infrastructure there, plus a big increase in public awareness about urological health.
And people being able to actually access the devices.
Precisely. It suggests a potential revolution in healthcare reach for, hundreds of millions. Japan, South Korea, Australia, Singapore also show strong upward trends.
Japan hitting $205 million, South Korea $148 million. Even the rest of APAC has a CAGR over 9%.
It really underscores the dynamism of that region in this sector.
And it's not just these sort of big three regions. The reports show significant expansion happening elsewhere too. South America, Middle East, Africa.
Absolutely. It's a truly global story. South America, for instance.
Yeah.
It's projected to more than double its market size.
Going from about $122 million in 2021 to over $254 million by 2033, a CGR over 6.2%.
Right. Brazil leads there, heading towards $115 million. But you also see strong growth in Argentina, Colombia, Peru, Chile, and it's broad-based.
And the Middle East, similar pattern.
Very similar. A significant rise expected there, too, from $116 million to over $246 million by 2033. That's a CER of nearly 6.5%.
Saudi Arabia leading that charge, aiming for almost $96 million, with UAE, Turkey, Egypt also showing strong figures.
And Africa is definitely part of this growth narrative as well.
Okay.
The market there is expected to nearly double, from about $82 million in 2021 to over $153 million by 2033.
Nigeria and South Africa seem to be key markets within the continent.
They are major contributors, yes. Nigeria projected around $38 million, South Africa near $60 million by 2033. But again, the rest of Africa category shows solid growth too.
So it really hammers home the point, this isn't isolated. It's a universal growing need for these kinds of healthcare solutions.
Exactly. It reflects a global demand.
So we've seen the numbers, the regions. Let's pull it all together. What are the core drivers? What's really fueling this incredible global momentum we're seeing in the intermittent catheters market?
Well, the research synthesizes it pretty clearly, and it seems to be a powerful mix of factors.
Right.
First, just rising global healthcare needs generally. Think aging populations, higher prevalence of certain chronic conditions.
Right, the underlying demand is growing.
Exactly. Second, and this seems crucial, is increased awareness. People and healthcare systems are more aware of urological conditions and the available solutions. That leads to earlier diagnosis and treatment.
Makes sense.
And third, maybe the most enabling factor, is simply growing access to these medical devices worldwide, particularly as we saw in developing regions.
So needs, awareness, and access, a powerful combination.
Absolutely. And if you connect that back to the bigger picture, these aren't just sales figures, are they? They represent real improvements in quality of life for millions, and of course, significant opportunities for innovation and growth within the healthcare sector itself. It really speaks to a fundamental shift towards more accessible healthcare globally.
That sums it up really well. So this deep dive into the cognitive market research data, it shows the intermittent catheters market is, well, robust, it's expanding everywhere, it reflects deep shared healthcare needs, and clearly holds a lot of opportunity, projected to break that $5.2 billion mark by 2033. It's been fascinating seeing how these numbers tell such a human story.
It really has. And maybe that leaves you, the listener, with a final thought to chew on.
Okay.
Given this consistent, widespread growth in this specific market, what other, maybe seemingly niche medical device areas might be experiencing similar, perhaps less reported, global expansion? Could parallel trends in healthcare access and awareness be driving growth in other hidden corners of the medical world? Something to perhaps explore on your own.
Welcome back to another deep dive. Today, we're digging into something, well, pretty crucial in global healthcare, but maybe a bit under the radar. It affects millions daily, our goal. To get you up to speed fast, share some surprising stuff, some key insights. We're looking at the global intermittent catheters market. Basically, these are vital medical devices. If someone's dealing with urinary retention, incontinence, stuff like that, these help manage the bladder effectively. Anywhere, really, hospitals, home.
So, okay, let's unpack this market. What's really driving it? What are the big hurdles? And, where's the cool innovation happening?
Yeah, it's a really dynamic area, lots going on. Like I said, we can break it down. We'll look at, say, three main growth drivers first,
Yeah.
then tackle the challenges, because there definitely are some. And finally, pivot to the really interesting trends. The tech, the way people are using them, it's changing fast.
Okay, great. Let's jump right in. What's pushing the growth? What's the first big thing we need to get? Well, a major factor is just the rising number of people with urinary disorders and neurogenic bladder issues, too. Globally, we're talking conditions like spinal cord injuries,
Right.
MS, enlarged prostates, other neurological diseases. I mean, millions are affected worldwide, and they often need these catheters for proper bladder management. It's not just, about making life easier. For many, it's fundamental. Think about it. A simple catheter might mean someone isn't stuck at home. They can actually get out, live their life. It's huge.
That really puts it in perspective. Wow. And I guess with populations getting older, that must play a role too. What's another driver?
Absolutely. That's the next big one, the aging global population. And tied to that, the real boom in home healthcare.
Hmm.
Older adults, they're just more likely to face urinary issues, right? Like incontinence or retention. Plus, people increasingly prefer care at home if possible. So you see this surge in demand for solutions that are easy to use, safe from infection. Especially important in elder care, long-term facilities. These catheters, they're portable, designed for self-use often, ideal for outside a hospital.
Okay, so it's more people needing them and needing them in different settings, like at home. What about the system itself? Healthcare access, maybe economic things. Are they boosting the market too?
Yeah, definitely. That brings us to supportive reimbursement policies and just general improvements in healthcare infrastructure. You see this particularly in developed countries, the U.S., Germany, Japan, places like that.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, these reimbursement policies, they sound dry, but they're not just about money. They actually drive better health outcomes, making advanced catheters affordable.
Yeah.
That cuts down on things like recurring UTIs, which saves healthcare costs in the long run and, more importantly, improves patients' lives. So policy really enables better access and health here.
Okay, so it sounds like there's a lot pushing this market forward. Demographic shifts, healthcare trends, policy. But like any market, there must be challenges, right? What's holding things back or causing problems?
For sure. One of the biggest, most persistent issues is the risk of urinary tract infections,
Mm.
UTIs. Now, intermittent catheters, they're generally seen as safer than the indwelling kind, the ones left in long term. But if they're not used correctly, if hygiene isn't great, or this is a problem, if single-use ones get reused, you can still get infections, and that's a real barrier,
Hmm.
especially if patient education isn't there or hygiene standards are low. It's a constant focus for improvement.
Right, patient safety is paramount. That makes sense. What else? Are there other big hurdles, maybe money or logistics?
Cost.
Mhm.
Definitely cost is a significant factor. Your standard basic catheters, they're relatively affordable, but the newer ones, the advanced types like hydrophilic coated or pre-lubricated ones, they're much better reduce infection risk, more comfortable. But they cost quite a bit more.
Mhm.
And that price difference can really limit who gets them. Think about low-income areas or people without good insurance. Creates a gap in access.
Ah, okay. So the better tech is there, but not everyone can actually get it. What about in developing regions? Are the challenges different there?
Yeah, often they are. In many developing parts of the world, it's often a fundamental lack of awareness and access.
Mm.
Think about rural areas, underserved communities. Sometimes patients, even healthcare providers, just don't have the training or knowledge about intermittent catheterization. And then you add underdeveloped distribution networks on top of that. Imagine someone in a remote village. Even if a basic catheter could help them, how do they get it? How do they learn to use it safely? They might end up using unsafe methods or just suffering. It really holds back the market's potential there and hurts people.
Those are serious challenges. The disparities and risks are clear. But you also mentioned innovation earlier. Let's pivot to that. What exciting things are happening to overcome some of these hurdles?
Well, one big shift is towards single-use and pre-lubricated catheters. These designs directly tackle that infection risk we talked about. And they're just, frankly, more comfortable for users. So they're getting really popular, especially for people doing self-catheterization and in outpatient clinics. Sterile, individually wrapped packets are becoming the norm where hygiene infrastructure allows. It's a direct response to the safety need.
That sounds like a really positive step for safety and just, well, user experience. And I've heard about this trend of patients taking more control of their own care. Is that happening here too?
Absolutely. That's another key trend. Healthcare systems are actively promoting self-catheterization now. They're backing it up with training programs, digital resources, apps, things like that. What this does is empower patients, people with chronic urinary conditions, to have more independence. And that, in turn, fuels demand for catheters that fit that lifestyle, portable, discreet, easy to handle every day. It's about giving people control.
So technology and patient empowerment are working together. That's great. What about the actual catheters themselves, the materials, the design, any breakthroughs there making them better?
Oh yeah, lots happening there. That's where you see some really cool tech innovation. Things like hydrophilic coatings, basically they get super slippery with water, makes insertion way easier, safer, less friction. We're also seeing designs like foldable catheters for discretion, gender-specific models for better fit and comfort, and even new materials coming in, like silicone-based ones or more eco-friendly options. Manufacturers are really focusing on personalization now, moving away from a one-size-fits-all approach. It's all very patient-centric. And what's really fascinating as you look at all this is how these different pieces, the needs, the challenges, the tech all weave together. It makes for a complex but, yeah, rapidly changing market.
Yeah, this has really painted a picture of just how much is changing in the intermittent catheter world. You've got these big demographic forces, the tech breakthroughs, different ways healthcare is being delivered. And yeah, challenges like cost and awareness are still there, definitely. But the momentum seems clearly towards making these safer, more comfortable, and just more available to people everywhere. It's kind of humbling, really, thinking how these, relatively simple devices can give someone back so much independence and quality of life.
Exactly. To sum it up, the key things are these devices are absolutely critical for millions. There are powerful reasons why more people are using them. And some really smart innovations are breaking down old barriers, which is making a tangible difference in people's lives, their independence.
So, stepping back then, what does all this mean for the bigger picture? Where is this heading?
Well, if you connect the dots, this constant push for personalization and patient-focused design we see here, from special coatings to portable options, it makes you wonder, right? It raises a bigger question. How will these specific med device innovations, these ways of tailoring things to the individual, maybe pave the way for broader shifts? Shifts in how we all manage chronic conditions. Are we moving towards a future where patient independence and truly customized care become the standard, not just the exception? Something to think about.